Okay, thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the Mayor and Council work session on Wednesday, April 9th, 2025. This meeting is also being conducted telephonically. Dial-in numbers 425-436-6365, access code 213563. The meeting may also be viewed on the Ramsey YouTube channel, which is available through the Borough website. May I please have a roll call?
Mayor Dillon,
Here.
Councilwoman Cusick,
Here.
Councilman Gutwetter,
Here.
Councilman Kilman is not here, Councilman Popolo,
Here.
Councilwoman Poppy,
Here.
Councilwoman Woods.
Here.
Thank you. All right. Stand for the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of all citizens to have advance notice of and to attend all meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting the public is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, notice of this meeting of the Mayor and Council was published in the Bergen Record and the Suburban News on Wednesday, January 15th, 2025. If we don't have any minutes for approval this evening, can we move on to communication?
I make a motion to accept and file the communication listed on the agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Cusick,
Yes.
Councilman Gutwetter,
Yes.
Councilman Popolo,
Yes.
Councilwoman Poppy,
Yes.
Councilwoman Woods.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, public comment. Anyone wishing to address the governing body, please give your name, spelling the last name and address. Please speak in an audible tone and address your comments to the chair. There will be a 5-minute time limit per speaker, unless reduced because of the volume of business on the agenda. Please note public comment is your time. Out of respect and fairness to all, there will be no interruptions or questions answered during your time. No time shall be ceded to anyone else, and no time shall be saved for later use. Any responses may be given during the governing body's comments later in the meeting or as directed by the chair. The Borough Clerk is the official timekeeper. Now, if you're here, you have comments on the ordinance pertaining to Island Road. The proper time to make your comments or ask questions is during the public hearing, which will be later in the meeting once Mr. Burgess arrives. So does anybody want to make any comments other than Island Road? Okay, not hearing anyone. Anyone on the line? Second call for public comment. Okay. Third and final call for public comment. All right, I will close public comment. Okay. We're going to advertise public hearing for final consideration of ordinances. Can I please have a motion to table ordinance 04-2020, to table the hearing on ordinance 04-2025 until later in this meeting when Mr. Burgess arrives?
Make a motion to table ordinance 04-2025 until Mr. Burgess arrives.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, this is Councilwoman Cusick, and I second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Okay, thank you. Then let's move on to the public hearing for ordinance 07-2025.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is Councilwoman Cusick. I'd like to read the final ordinance for 07-2025, an ordinance amending Chapter 4 of the Code of the Borough of Ramsey, Bergen County, New Jersey, so as to establish Section 4-19 thereof entitled Liability Insurance and Annual Registration Requirements for Businesses and Owners of a Rental Unit or Units. Having been brought up for public hearing, and all persons interested having been given an opportunity to be heard, pass final reading by title, and that said ordinance be adopted as an ordinance of the Borough of Ramsey, and be it further resolved that the Borough Clerk be, and she hereby is directed to cause a copy of the title of said ordinance to be published in an official newspaper of the Borough in the manner provided by law, together with a notice of the date of introduction and adoption of said ordinance.
Do we have a second?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I second.
Thank you. Do we have any comments on this ordinance? Thank you.
Yes, Madam Mayor. This ordinance to establish liability insurance and annual registration requirements for businesses and owners of rental units is in part, the state adopted into law S-1368, which requires all owners of multifamily rental units to maintain certain minimum levels of liability insurance. So in addition, they are required to annually register that certificate of insurance with the municipality. This ordinance codifies the state insurance requirements and establishes the borough's administrative fees and the penalty for noncompliance.
Thank you. Okay. All right. I will now open it up to public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on Ordinance 07-2025? Okay, not seeing anyone step up. Is there anyone on the line who would like to comment on Ordinance 07-2025? Second call for public comments. Third and final call for public comments. Okay, not hearing anyone, I will close the public hearing for Ordinance 07-2025. Can we please have a roll call?
Councilwoman Cusick?
Yes.
Councilman Gutwetter?
Yes.
Councilman Popolo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Poppy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Woods?
Yes.
Thank you. Consent resolutions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Be it resolved that Resolution 076-2025 through and including 082-2025, having been considered by the governing body of the Borough of Ramsey, be and are hereby passed and approved. There's a special permit request this evening. Stigma Free is requesting permission to post signs in various locations advertising for a Stigma Free event on May 4, 2025, and there are no block party requests this evening.
Thank you. Any comments on the consents? Not hearing any. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Okay, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Cusick?
Yes.
Councilman Gutwetter?
Yes.
Councilman Popolo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Poppy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Woods?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to committee and liaison reports. Councilman Gutwetter.
Thanks again, Madam Mayor. My report for this evening. For the library board, as mentioned previously, a new digital content format called Comic Plus is being newly offered, which provides digital comics and manga. The library is now also offering a new type of audio player to Borough called a Yodo player, which are portable screen-free audio players geared for kids that play stories and songs. And the Friends of the Ramsey Library jewelry sale this past weekend was successful. Proceeds will be going to support library services, including the summer reading program, Sunday concert series, and the museum cast program. For the Recreation Commission, the Easter egg hunt in partnership with the Ramsey Fire Department will be held on this Saturday, April 12th in the morning. And the summer camp at Finch Park registration will be opening shortly, and the Homeland Derby is scheduled for June. I believe it's the 14th. I'm on 100% date. Confirm that. Ramsey Farmers Market. Market is open 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Continuing scheduled through the end of this month, and then we'll expand the hours starting in May. There are still upwards of 50 dedicated farmers and food purveyors each and every Sunday. The EV car show sponsored by the Environmental Commission will be on April 27th. And on May 4th, the Ramsey Area Garden Club annual plant sale sponsored by the Women's Club of Ramsey will take place. And I just want to thank Councilwoman Sarah Poppy. That was a successful Ramsey Journal, which hit the mailboxes. I got mine today. I'm not sure if anybody got theirs yesterday or getting theirs tomorrow. But it looks like a really good issue. And thank you for your efforts, for you and your team. That's my report for this evening.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Councilman Kilman is absent. Does anybody have a report for him for public safety? Okay, wonderful. Building, planning, and zoning.
Oh, thank you.
Councilwoman Woods, hold on here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My report is short tonight because of how my meetings fall. The Design Review Board last met on March 25th, and they had 3 applications approved. The next Design Review Board meeting is Tuesday, April 22nd. The Senior Trustees Board will meet tomorrow, but their last meeting was on the 13th. I just want to mention again, the seniors will be stuffing like thousands of Easter eggs at 12:30 tomorrow at the Senior Center if you want to come help. The Zoning Board of Adjustment will meet next week, April 16th, and they will hear 2 applications. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Utilities, Buildings, and Grounds, Councilwoman Cusick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is Councilwoman Cusick for my report 9 April 2025. I want to thank the Environmental Commission and our volunteers for hosting Cleanup Day this past Saturday. My report tonight will be an update regarding our Planning Board, our Shade Tree Commission, and the Board of Public Works. For the Ramsey Planning Board, the next Planning Board is scheduled for April 15th. The meeting on April 1st was canceled. At our prior Mayor and Council meeting in March, I gave an update on the activities of the Planning Board. For our Shade Tree Commission, it last met on the 20th of March 2025. The next meeting is scheduled for the 17th of April 2025. This year, there will be over 40 new trees planted in our borough. Our Shade Tree Commission also has a wonderful submission in the Ramsey Journal Spring Edition. The Board of Public Works, it last met on the 17th of March 2025. Our next meeting is April 21st, 2025. Per and polyfluorinated substances, PFAS, are a group of chemicals used to make fluoropolymer coatings and products that resist heat, oil, stains, grease, and water. There are U.S. EPA PFAS water quality limits which impact our water supply. H2M, our architectural and engineering firm, is working with the Ramsey Water Department regarding treatment approaches at our well treatment facilities at Arrow Road and at Darlington, Brookfield, North Central, and Spring Street. The lead service line replacement, the Board of Public Works continues planning and implementing regarding the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection's lead service line replacement legislation. This project requires that all lead service lines served by the water system be replaced by the year 2031. Ramsey gets our water supply from well water and reservoirs from Veolia. That's an external provider. Veolia sends the borough water with higher levels of chlorinated water to supplement our well water supply. And this is because Veolia's water supply is from surface water sources as compared to our well water sources. Madam Mayor, thank you very much.
Thank you. Public and Governmental Relations, Councilwoman Happy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. As Councilman Gutwetter stated, the Ramsey Journal was dropped at the mailbox by the printer on Tuesday, so everyone should be getting their journals.
Your input is invalid.
Every meeting.
Totally invalid.
Wow. Yeah, this might have been a little over here. So everyone should be getting their journals today, tomorrow, and Friday. I'd like to extend a special thank you to Kelly Sylvester and Meredith Bendian for all of your help editing the journal. It is a mammoth undertaking, and I really appreciated all of the support and hard work this year. The Municipal Alliance will meet on April 28th. They are preparing for Mental Health Awareness Month. They are also working with Resurrecting Stigma Free. So Stigma Free will be coming up with programming to support mental health awareness. They will have yard signs. There will be a walk and talkathon at the high school track that was originally slated for May 3rd. They had a conflict at the high school, so it's now May 4th from 1 to 3. So when you leave the farmer's market, you can go up there and participate in the walk and talkathon. They have a lot of great programming and speakers that they're coordinating for that event. The next new resident mixer will be held at the town pool on the 6th of June. I will be sending out notification to the local organizations, just letting them know to save the date. And we will be sending out letters to the new residents to be invited to that particular event. And the Ramsey Municipal Pool, as a reminder, the early bird registration is open until the end of this month. And then the rates will increase starting in May. So if you'd like to take advantage of their early registration, I would encourage you to do so now. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Health, Education, and Social Services, Councilman Popolo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Brief update tonight. I'll start off with Ramsey's for Everyone. We have a break until the end of April, where softball will begin, towards April, probably that last weekend in April. And nothing else going on for Ramsey's for Everyone. For environmental, we met last night. 4 things I'll bring up. We had a good turnout for the Sam Wright cleanup, about 140 volunteers. More than half were children, which was good, so they did a lot of the parks and activity around that. We did hit most of the areas of Sriracha Pond, the bike paths, and some of the main streets, Wyckoff Ave as well. Toy Drive was on 4-6. They had a pretty good turnout in getting plastic toys and brought them down to Fairlawn. I think we only had 1 carload going down, and usually we do 2, so it was a little bit light, but that's all we had there. The EV car show is Sunday the 27th. That's from 9 to 1. And that will be having about 5 or 6 vendors that'll be present there for that date. And then the next styrofoam collection will be for Ramsey on May 17th. Upper Saddle River is having one on the 19th of April, and we'll work with our board to kind of go down there and make sure that we get the traffic going out of Richfield Park on that. So we'll work with our crew. Board of Ed is later on this month. The only other thing I'll bring up was the Cub Scout Pack 306. The Hour of Light was a great event that we had at the Brick House in Wyckoff. There was at least a dozen Cub Scouts that were moving on to the next level if they want, but it was a really, really nice event, well attended. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. It's not public comment. Yeah, you already had it. So I want to let everybody know, for Stigma Free, the month of May, we're actually going to have green ribbons on the light poles on Main Street, which is the first time we're doing this. And they will be up for the entire month of May. And I'd like to thank everybody who showed up for the Ramsey Cleanup Day. It really was a great turnout. It's amazing, the cleanup that was done on Woodland Avenue. Councilman Popolo, my husband, and I cleaned the bike path. And it's amazing how many cigarette butts we picked up, amongst other things. And I hope everybody can join us on the Stigma-Free Walk and Talkathon next month, because we used to do this before COVID, but we discontinued it during COVID. So I'm glad that this event is now back on the schedule. And thank you to Councilwoman Poppy for all your wonderful work on the newsletter. Very informative. That's all I have. Mr. Bose.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just first would like to comment on a couple of resolutions that were on the agenda tonight. Resolutions 81 and 82 awarded contracts to PM Construction for paving. Ramsey is the lead agent in the Northwest Bergen Shared Service Group and annually coordinates a shared service bid for road resurfacing. This year we have 4 municipalities included in the bid, allowing us to have additional paving quantities and achieve a more attractive bid package. The public bid was advertised and bids were opened on April 2nd. It was a very competitive bid process. We had 9 firms bidding on the contract. PM Construction was the low bid. PM Construction has successfully performed under contracts for similar scope of work in the past, and after both the technical and legal review of the bids by the borough's engineer and QPA, as well as the borough attorney, respectively, the recommendation is to award the contract to PM Construction. Resolution 81 awarded the contract as the lead agent of our shared service collectively for all 4 towns, with a total amount of $1,039,834.50. And Resolution 82 awards a subsidiary contract, which is only for Ramsey's portion of the work, totaling $211,736.22. I have a couple comments on ordinances upcoming, and I'll hold those for when we get to them.
Hey, thank you. Borough Attorney.
Nothing, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Borough Clerk.
I have nothing, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now let's go into introduction of ordinances. Ordinance 08-2025.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is Councilwoman Cusick. This is an intro to ordinance 08-2025. Be it resolved that an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending the Borough of Ramsey Code of Ordinances to repeal Chapter 25 Flood Damage Prevention, to adopt a new Chapter 25 Floodplain Management Regulations, to adopt flood hazard maps, to designate a floodplain administrator, and providing for severability and an effective date. Pass the first reading by title, and that said ordinance be further considered for final passage and adoption at a regular meeting of the mayor and council to be held on the 23rd day of April, 2025, 7 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon after as the matter can be reached at the municipal building in said borough, and be it further resolved that the borough clerk be, and she hereby is, instructed to publish in an official newspaper of the borough in the manner provided by law a copy of said ordinance, together with notice of introduction thereof, and notice when the same will be considered for final passage and adoption.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any comments on this ordinance?
Borough Administrator, would you give the comments, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Recently, FEMA had reviewed the New Jersey Model Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance and recommended that the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, the DEP, revise it to ensure that all 553 New Jersey participating community ordinances are compliant with the National Flood Insurance Program. This model ordinance was provided to New Jersey municipalities by the DEP and incorporates those FEMA recommendations, and adoption is required by June 18th of this year. Introduction of this ordinance and public hearing for adoption at our meeting tonight will ensure compliance with the DEP timeline and bringing our local ordinance in compliance with FEMA and the New Jersey DEP's model ordinance to be enacted.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilwoman Cusick?
Yes.
Councilman Gutwetter?
Yes.
Councilman Popolo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Poppy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Woods?
Yes.
Okay, we don't have any unfinished business. We'll go into new business. We're going to have a public hearing on the Bergen County Open Space Recreation, Floodplain Protection, Farmland and Historic Preservation Trust Fund for obtaining a matching grant of approximately $117,500 from the County Trust Fund to fund improvements to Finch Park, including the installation of permanent, energy-efficient field lighting to enhance accessibility and playability while eliminating the need for inefficient diesel-powered temporary lights. Mr. Rose, you have any comments on that?
Yes, I do. This grant application is going to the Bergen County Open Space Program. That program requires, or under any successful grant under that program, they would award you 50% of the project cost. The borough would be providing the other 50%. This comes out of the Open Space Trust Fund funds that are sent through municipal taxes down to the county for this Open Space Trust Fund, and that's how they distribute the grants to different municipalities. The specific project for this year, as was read, it includes improvements to Finch Park for the installation of permanent energy-efficient field lighting. This would be on the field, if you're familiar, kind of where the fireworks are held every year, and certainly there's football practice there in the fall and some other things. The lights for the parking lot and that field are very old, very inefficient, need to be replaced. They are also diesel-powered temporary light towers that are very noisy and, again, energy inefficient to utilize. So the proposal is to get the grant to install light poles to point down, focus the lighting so there's not as much spill as there currently is to the neighboring homes, and also become a lot more energy efficient and utilize less electricity or diesel-powered generators to get us to the same place in updating the park to current standards of any lighted area and field.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone in the public that would like to comment on this grant application? Okay. Yes, sir. Please step up and give your name.
New lighting, Fred Damiano, 245 Davidson Avenue, Ramsey. Does this new lighting include the pickle courts?
This application does not but we had a prior application that did include the pickleball courts. So the pickleball courts will actually be an earlier phase of the lighting upgrades at Finch Park before this.
But you do plan to light them?
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Sure. Anyone else? Okay, anyone on the line wishing to comment on this? Second call for public comment. Third and final call for public comment. Okay, can we please have the resolution, Councilman Gutwetter?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This will be Resolution 083-2025, authorizing the borough to submit an application for a grant to Bergen County Open Space in the amount of $117,500 for improvements to Finch Park, including energy-efficient field lighting.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilwoman Cusick?
Yes.
Councilman Gutwetter?
Yes.
Councilman Papalo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Poppy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Woods?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, we're still waiting on Mr. Burgess. Do you want to go ahead and start giving the background? Mr. Vosé will start giving you some more background on the Island Road project, and then, we'll have Mr. Burgess here.
Do you want to introduce, have the title read and then?
Sure, why don't we go ahead and do that? Can I have a motion to go back to untable ordinance 04-2025?
A motion to untable 04-2025.
Thank you. Can we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Cusick?
Yes.
Councilman Gutwetter?
Yes.
Councilman Papalo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Poppy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Woods?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll start the advertised public hearing for final consideration of ordinance 04-2025.
All right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Final ordinance 04-2025, an ordinance to amend Chapter 34 entitled Zoning of the Revised General Ordinance of the Borough of Ramsey to establish a new R-5C Island Road multifamily residential zone district. Having been brought up for public hearing and all persons interested have been given an opportunity to be heard, pass final reading by title, and that said ordinance be adopted as an ordinance of the Borough of Ramsey. And be it further resolved that the Borough Clerk be, and she hereby is, directed to cause a copy of the title of said ordinance to be published in an official newspaper of the Borough in the manner provided by law, together with a notice of the date of introduction and adoption of said ordinance.
Thank you. Can we have a second?
This is Councilwoman Cusick. I second.
Thank you. Mr. Vosé?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As mentioned, this ordinance amends Chapter 34 of the current Borough Code of Zoning to establish a new R5C Island Road multifamily residential zone district, which involves Block 4201, Lots 5 and 6. This ordinance does not approve a specific development plan. Any entity wishing to develop the property will need to come before the planning board and publicly present its plan to the board and its engineers for review prior to any approval to move forward with the development. At that hearing of the planning board, it will address that any new development also must adhere to all state regulations on stormwater runoff and a net zero requirement that's there. The public can comment on the application at the time of the planning board hearing as well, question the developers, their professionals that will present at the hearing regarding any development of the property. What I will now, that's not tonight. We don't have a specific plan. What the ordinance has in it tonight, I'll talk about some of the provisions that are in the ordinance. As I mentioned, this is a rezoning pertaining to only Block 4201, Lots 5 and 6. The purpose of the rezoning is to create a realistic opportunity for the construction of an age-restricted multifamily inclusionary development to meet an increasing need and demand in Ramsey and surrounding communities. This particular site's relationship to appropriate infrastructure and proximity to other residentially zoned and developed properties along with sufficient size allow it to accommodate such development. This development will also help to address the fair share housing, affordable housing obligation of the borough. The permitted use of the property would be for inclusionary multifamily development with age restrictions. The minimum age requirements for any affordable housing income restricted unit would be at least one resident must be 62 years of age or older, and for any market rate units, at least one of the residents must be 55 years of age or older. The minimum afforded housing component will be 20% of any units for sale and 15% of any units for rent by ordinance. The area and bulk requirements compare favorably to those seen in multifamily zones, and as compared to zone R5B on Island Road, which is further down Island closer to Route 17, for example, the unity density per acre in this R5C proposed zone is 8.2, while in the R5B, which exists further down, has a density of 20 per acre. This ordinance has been developed with the borough's planner, Joseph Burgess of Burgess Associates. He's one of the leading planners in the area, and this ordinance is also very in line with the current needs and market conditions seen in all of the Northwest Bergen County towns in terms of land use and project development.
Thank you. All right, so at this point, we'll wait for Mr. Burgess to arrive. Hopefully he'll be here very, very soon. We'll have him, make comments, and then we'll open it up to public hearing where you can make comments, you can ask questions of Mr. Burgess during that public hearing. Okay. Okay. If you want to stand up, stretch your legs, you're more than welcome to.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah. We're going to go back on the record. Mr. Burgess is here. He'll be in the room momentarily, okay?
Nice seeing you.
There he is. There's Mr. Burgess. The man of the hour. Come on up, Joe.
Joe?
Sure, you want to go by Meredith?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, once again, this is now the public hearing for ordinance 04-2025. Okay. And can we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Councilwoman Cusick?
Here.
Councilman Gutwetter?
Yes.
Councilman Popolo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Poppy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Woods?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Burgess?
Yes, I gotta tell you, I've been doing this for 40 years, first time I was ever locked out of a meeting.
Yeah, it's a little embarrassing, actually.
Hi, everyone, thanks for your patience. As you know, this is a public hearing on this ordinance for 425 Island Road. And its purpose is basically to identify a site for multifamily, age-restricted affordable housing set aside, meaning that either 15 or 20% of the units would be for affordable housing, all the rest would be market housing. I would imagine, I'm trying to catch my breath quite frankly, I would imagine that you have two questions in mind. Why are we doing this? And then secondly, why here? In order to fully understand it, what I'd like to do is give a little background on the whole affordable housing issue and what our obligations are and the limited means within which we have to address at least a portion of our obligation. Let me start with what's called the third round of affordable housing. We are now up to round 4. Under the third round, I'm going to start with a couple numbers that might shock you, but then I'll explain how it's not as bad as it might initially sound. Under the third round, the state of New Jersey gave Ramsey an affordable housing obligation of 736 affordable units. We prepared a housing plan where we identified the fact that we just don't have enough vacant land, or developable land, to address that kind of number, and we reduced that number from 736 down to 54. Yeah, I like that expression. The same holds true for this fourth round. The fourth round technically starts just now, and it's good for a 10-year period into mid-2035. And the Department of Community Affairs now publishes housing need numbers for every municipality in the state, and they made the determination that Ramsey now needs 503 affordable units. Now, there's an organization that supports affordable housing in the state called Fair Share Housing Center. You may have heard of that or read about them in the paper. They actually have done their own calculation and suggested our number should be 520 affordable units. I will tell you that based on our experience with the third round, where we were entitled to do what's called a vacant land adjustment and a realistic development potential, which in that third round was 54 units, we're very confident that we're going to have a similar significant reduction this time around. Unfortunately, our options are very limited. The one thing I think I have to stress with all this, if we do not provide for a certain amount of affordable housing, we would lose our immunity from all affordable housing litigation. That could be put you in a very desperate strait. For example, in Englewood Cliffs, I think is the poster child statewide for when you just ignore your obligation. They were fined literally millions of dollars for not doing what they were supposed to do. The courts also took away the power of the planning board to review development applications, and they appointed a special master to oversee all development in the state, in Englewood Cliffs on behalf of the state. We certainly don't want that to happen here. What we do know is that our options are limited. First of all, everybody knows we're a fully developed municipality, so we don't have much vacant land to speak of. The Fair Share Housing Center, as well as the state, is aware of the limited amount of vacant land and potentially redevelopable land that we do have. And because of that, and because we have this particular site, which is near a train station where the state is actively encouraging multifamily housing, we know that this property is in fact in play. Now, typically, when you look at sites near train stations, for example, and near other multifamily housing, which is across the street from the site, DCA, previously the Council on Affordable Housing, and Fair Share say you should have much higher densities. For example, in Park Ridge, near their train station, they were zoning sites near the train station at 50, 60, and 70 to the acre, which we found totally unacceptable here. We were able to come up with a plan that talked about 8.2 units to the acre for the site. Now, the minimum standards are typically 6 to 8 for more rural open areas. We're applying that here for the reason that this municipality just can't sustain the kind of densities that you typically see at train stations. We're not going to be able to ignore this site. We're going to have to deal with it. But we figure if we zone this now at this level of density, it would put us in a very good position when we ask for that significant vacant land adjustment to help us get a plan approved by the state, which will result in total numbers that are significantly even less than what our prior rounds of realistic development potential number is. So we put together this ordinance. As I said, it only allows for age-restricted multifamily housing at a density of 8.2 to the acre. The site is roughly 8.5 acres in size, so at most you could get 70 dwelling units, townhouse units on the site. Now, I know from letters that have been filed or sent to the municipality, amongst the other concerns is issues of flooding, issues of traffic generating potential. I can tell you that while everything across the street from this site is in a 100-year floodplain, this site, the floodplain extends onto this site for only about the first 50 feet of the property. The rest of the site is not in a floodplain. That would suggest that about 7% or so of the frontage of the property is in that flood area, but the rest of it is not. So that also reinforces from the state's perspective and Fair Share's perspective that this site should be in play. What we've also done to minimize development in terms of not only density, but we're also imposing building coverage and impervious coverage limitations such that minimally 40% of the property has to be retained as green space on the property. So we're not going to see the whole site paved, for example. Other standards that we're imposing talk about a building height of 38 feet. Typically, in the municipality for single-family houses, you could have a height of 35 feet. The reason it's only 3 feet more than that is because of the way townhouses are designed today. They just need that little extra height to provide for the kinds of aesthetic features to the property, to the buildings that we want to see that we've built into the ordinance. The ordinance itself also has a whole host of architectural design standards to make sure that we end up with something that's very attractive and won't adversely affect any property values in the area. So we're comfortable that the regulations and the design criteria that we've built into this ordinance really represent something that will result in a positive project, albeit I understand that 8 to the acre is not something that you would prefer to see in the neighborhood. It is actually a little less dense than the apartments across the street from it, I should point out. Finally, in terms of the flooding issue, as an example, and all the other design issues, this is just the first step. All of those issues will be reviewed when the applicant ever files a site plan to develop the property. And the planning board retains both my office, engineering, and engineer's office. There will be a traffic consultant analyzing their plans to make sure that it fits in as best as it can, given the circumstances that we have. I think that briefly summarizes things.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah. So if you have any questions, please come up here to the podium, give your name, spelling your last name and your address, and then please ask any questions that you have.
Mark Maciag, M-A-C-I-A-G. I live at 241 Davidson Avenue. So I guess you mentioned the site. Are there other sites considered prior to this one, and what eliminated those sites compared to this one?
We are obligated, and I should have explained this earlier. As part of our obligation, we have to file a housing element and fair share plan with the state no later than June 30th. So we are looking at, we will be looking at other sites. We recognize that in the end, and we haven't completed our analysis yet, but while we had a 54-unit realistic development potential, that's called RDP for short, under the last round, we are confident that that number will be somewhat less than that. We certainly didn't want to put all those units on this one property, so we will be looking at 1 or 2 other sites to help meet whatever that final RDP number is.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier the flood concerns. So I lived in Ramsey 13 years. My first 5 or 6 years here, we had no issues with flooding on Davidson. They built the homes off a shop right there. That new development, maybe 6 or 7 homes up there, up that hill. Ever since then, like my neighborhood has experienced a lot of flooding during any type of heavy rainfall. I have images if you like to see them. I can share those with you. We've called the town personally to kind of figure out what's going on, what's changed since those homes went in. My neighbor asked me to share a paragraph that he received in an email from your borough engineering, DPW director, Jack D'Agostaro. If you don't mind, I'd like to read that to you, if you don't mind, regarding the flooding issues that we've had in our neighborhood. Regarding the other issue you bring up, flooding following the rain from Hurricane Henry and the storm sewers in the Indian Valley, Davidson area do not have sufficient capacity for the amount of rainfall that fell. The stormwater system, having been built over 70 years ago, was not designed to the present standards. The borough does not have the resources or responsibility to upgrade the storm sewers in your area or other areas of the borough to today's standards. The DPW will continue to provide assistance to make sure the existing pipes and drains are clear to maximize their capacity. So my concern obviously is if these structures do go up, like, will that adversely affect our area again?
I'm not the engineer, but I can tell you that the new DEP regulations mandate that whatever design is done for this property, the rate of flow, they first analyzed the existing rate of flow coming off the property, and they were obligated to reduce that amount by a certain percentage. So there will be less flow coming off this site, if there is flow coming off the site. But whatever it is, it has to be reduced by a certain percentage. So in that way, they attempt to minimize the potential for any additional flooding in the area.
But there is potential flow to go to where we reside. Is that what am I hearing you correctly? I'm sorry.
Ask that again?
So, but there is potential water flow going behind the structure to where we currently reside in Indian Valley and Davidson?
I couldn't even tell you that. There's been no design for the property yet in terms of engineering details.
Okay.
That's the kind of thing that David Halls, our engineer, will be reviewing as part of any future site plan that is filed.
Okay. Okay, I think that's all I have. I can share images with you guys if you'd like them.
Yeah, and as part of, if there's an application filed to go before the planning board, one of the biggest elements is drainage. And they will have to present very detailed plans prepared by a licensed engineer. And that, as Mr. Burgess said, those plans will be reviewed by Mr. Halls, who is the engineer for the planning board.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Anybody else have any questions?
See those photos down.
Okay. Yeah, of course. Well, just give them to Miss Bendian. She'll do it. Okay, does anybody have any comments that you'd like to make?
Yes, that's the neighborhood behind the tracks.
I would just like to say, Joe Walsh,
Give it
38.
In the record,
Sorry.
them for me.
Yep.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
That living there, it used to be beautiful, and there was all woods. 238 Davidson. So I live right on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
So I live right behind the new development, which, since it's been there, as the other gentleman said, we flood really, really badly. You can't even get off the block. That's how bad the floods are.
Mm-hmm.
So with everything said, how everybody's trying to make it not that way, and it happened. So it doesn't give us much to go on if it's already happened, and now you're talking about building another building there when we're already having this flood problem. So
Right.
that's
and-
my comment, that
Okay, got it. And as Mr. Burgess said, there's new standards from the DEP that this project, if it goes forward, because if there's been nothing presented to the planning board, we'll have to address those new standards.
right. And just basically having a building there, it just takes away the charm of Ramsey, and it's making it not the little town that we originally moved to, and that's sad.
Understood, but you have to understand.
No, I do
With the
understand
affordable
that.
housing,
Right.
we have to comply with this. We just don't have a choice. And Mr. Burgess, Mr. Bose and I, a couple of weeks ago, we were on an 80-minute mediation meeting
Mhm.
with Fair Share Housing Center. We were actually arguing with them about, okay, this is what they told us. You know where they told us we could do housing? You ready? In the middle of Don Bosco High School. They said, oh, there's plenty of woods right there. So they wanted us to actually say, yes, let's divide Don Bosco, which is private property, let's divide it in half and put affordable housing there. So that's what we're dealing with.
Right.
So, yes, our hands are tied to a certain extent, but we're really doing our best to make sure that, yes, Ramsey meets its obligations, but in the best way for the borough. And one of the reasons we're limiting this to zoning or limiting to 55 and older, 62 and older, is because there is a need in town for people whose children have grown, who would like to stay in town, but no longer want to live in a big house and pay all the taxes and take care of the property. This is something we have in mind for them. So as people age, they can stay in town. And if their family still lives here, they can walk into town, they can get to the train station. So we're trying to be very forward-thinking with this project. And I know change is hard. It's just, we have to do this with the state. If you look at what's going on, does anybody see the developments that are going on over by Gow?
Yes.
Okay, across from Police
Yes.
Department, that's going to be 6 units of special needs housing for high functioning. And we get affordable credits for each one of those units. In fact, we get 1.5 credits for each of those units. So we will get 9 credits of affordable housing for that project. So,
And that's a great thing. All right, well, thank you.
Yeah,
I
thank
You can
you.
find another spot, though.
And remember, if there is an application for this, you will be notified if it goes before the planning board, and you have every right to attend a planning board meeting, to ask questions of the witnesses, and there's plenty of witnesses at a planning board meeting, trust me. Some of the meetings can go on for some of the hearings can go on for 3 meetings. There's so many witnesses. But you're welcome to attend, listen to what the witnesses have to say, ask questions of them, and then also make statements and, give your thoughts about the project. So you will have the opportunity to do that if an application is filed. Anyone else have comments?
I have some questions.
Sure.
Mark Robinson, I live at 467 Island Road. So I'm going to presume, what I'm kind of hearing is that the zoning you're doing, this is going to be rental properties? Or you don't know at this point?
Yeah, not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, okay.
If it's-
And if some of these do become low income, does the low income aspect ever run out?
After 30 years?
Actually, with the new regulations, it's a 40-year deed restriction.
Okay.
But then after 40 years, the town has the right to tack on an additional.
Did you say 4 years or 40?
40
years,
40.
okay. So I'm going to presume that what I'm kind of hearing, that it's a foregone conclusion that this zoning's changing.
Well, the council has to vote on it still.
Right, but this is the first we're actually hearing about it. We got the letter in the mail, and, so this all came about because of the Affordable Act that you guys have to, basically because we need affordable housing.
Yeah, we have to comply.
So you basically saw this piece of property, you said, hey, we can do that with that piece of property, and that's how this whole thing came about? Or from what I understand, the builder or the owner of the property, he wants to put condos in there.
There is a developer that's interested in putting
'Cause-
condos in it, yes.
I'm just hearing this from the word of mouth coming, because I've heard guys got a big mouth.
There is a developer that's interested, but as I said, no application has been filed.
Okay, so let's just say, for sake of argument, the owner of the property, he decides, I want to build my 16 homes in there that was originally, when the property was sold and subdivided for.
If this ordinance is passed, he won't be able to.
He will not be able to. Okay. And would they address the traffic issues?
Yes.
Like I said, I live 3 doors down from this property. I've been hit pulling in my driveway, and I've been almost hit 5 other times. And the traffic, as I'm sure you know, Jim Dolan, who was a real pain in your ass, excuse my French.
Welcome to Ramsey.
But he wasn't kidding.
Thank you.
It's an issue,
Yeah.
on that road. And, bringing in more, 65 units in there, 64, 60, whatever, that's going to bring a lot more traffic into the area, So it's just, it's very concerning to have those, with putting that property in there. And not to mention, the other issue for me, I look right out my family room window, and I look at that property. I can see the new homes that went in across the way. And one of the huge issues I have with apartment complexes across the street, knowing when I bought the property, it was there, so I dealt with it, is lighting. And when you put a condo unit in, the lighting never shuts off. It's on all the time. I have to have blinds and stuff on that side of the house to block the lights because they come through. You have to have blockout shades. So it's a concern with, light pollution. And we have a lot in Ramsey already.
And lighting will be addressed as part of any application.
Yeah, Mark, if I can. One of the things we built into the ordinance are buffer requirements, so they've got to provide a double row of evergreen plant material around the perimeter of the site and also in front of the site. And on top of that, our ordinance now requires all freestanding lights to be shielded and downlit. So we try to minimize light pollution that way.
The spill.
I understand your concern.
Okay. And of course, they all said everybody's concerned about flooding, and I've seen the road flooded on Island Road too. So that's all I got.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, come on up.
I wasn't planning on speaking.
All right.
My name's Brianna Badalamenti at 29 Indian Valley. Now that
Can you
we
spell the
have
last name, please?
Badalamenti. So I'm here, my concern is the potential additional flooding to our area in Indian Valley and Davidson. And now that we have an active audience, I was just curious, do you have any suggestions how to get help from the town for what we are experiencing already? Because we have called, people have seen these pictures before, but I think as neighbors, we need help now. So if we have you here, how do we do that?
I will tell you, I could talk to David Holtz about that. I'm not the engineer, so I can't offer engineering solutions. I'm sure he's aware of this already. He's been the engineer for a number of years here. But I'll have a talk with him to see if we can.
Yeah, show him those pictures. My son at the time, a couple years ago, this was in 2021, 22, we have a plastic boat in the backyard and it was sailing away because of the water so high. So it's a concern. It's not a good thing.
No, I understand.
So
We'll see Mr. Halls next Tuesday, because this Councilwoman Cusick and I have planning board, we're both on the planning board. We will discuss
Thank
this
you.
with Mr. Halls.
We appreciate that.
Of course.
Yeah.
And we'll ask him to go out and look around and definitely. Okay, anyone else? Sure. Come on up.
Damiano, 245 Davidson Avenue, Damiano. No one's addressed noise yet. I mean, we get a lot of noise from the train. I think some of the open air that we have, that you're thinking about building on, some trees, some shrubbery, absorbs a great deal of that sound. You build new homes, I heard you say you're gonna put a buffer in, a double buffer. We need a big buffer and a thick buffer, because the noise lately has been, the freight train, they built these new trains. You think they build them quiet? They're no quiet than the old trains. They still click clack. Maybe it's the track, I don't know what it is. And I wish I could talk to the train people, because they love to blow that whistle every time they hit the train, not just once. I know they need to because it's cars cross there, but they blow it 2, 3, 4 times. The other day I was on the golf course, I'm ready to swing the club. He saw me and he blew it. So, but that's beside the point. Noise is a problem, and I think a development of this size will create more noise. So we're going to have be serious about how we mitigate that.
As we review their site plans, whenever it comes in, there are certain mitigating factors that we could impose on them. But I can tell you, we're not going to be able to eliminate the noise from the train, certainly.
No, the train's a train, I know. But the more we can do, the other thing that concerns me, and this is probably minor, we have a substantial wildlife that lives in that open space. We have 2 or 3 families of fox. We have way more deer than we can handle. We have raccoons. We have a little forest back there, a little nursery of animals. I don't know where they're going to go. Take that land away, another problem. but it's just an issue, one of those things you think about.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's a list.
Anyone else?
Everyone, Diane Tenga, 20 Indian Valley Road, Tenga. I had a whole list of things I was going to say, a lot of which are irrelevant at this point with the stage that this project is at. Definitely flooding is really our major concern, but the whole environmental effect, which was just brought up, the wildlife is going to make it worse. We have a lot of little kids in the neighborhood, so I think that an environmental study should be done, which I'm not sure if that is going to be the case or not.
Now, the ordinance, I believe, already mandates for any project of a certain size, and if you qualify, they are required to file an environmental impact statement. I think that is covered.
Okay, so now my question is, when somebody proposes a plan, a developer, will we be notified as to when that meeting would be?
Yes. They are required by law to send out notices to everybody within 200 feet.
Okay.
So everybody within 200 feet will definitely get a notice in the mail. There's also an advertisement in the newspaper about the application. And I could just tell you from the way I know how these things happen, one neighbor gets a notice, the word immediately spreads. And that's important for you to keep in mind, though, to make sure you want all your neighbors to come out.
Right. Okay. Yeah. The flooding really is a huge, huge concern. It's up knee deep.
Understood.
Yeah. And it's inevitable that any new project going in there, taking forestry away, is going to have runoff. So you can say, engineers and developers are coming in, but it's inevitable.
Sure.
Fred Damiano, 245 Davidson Avenue, DAM. You can't fix the flooding that we have now. The development's done. We have our houses. This flooding they're talking about is in the sewer system that we have in a developed area. From what I understand, the pipe does not have enough pitch in it. So when you get a heavy rain, it fills up the drains. I mean, we've had several times where the fire extinguisher disappears. That's how deep the water is. And so we keep talking, so anything that a new development could add to this, anything would make it that much more worse than it is.
As I said earlier, the rate of runoff has to be less with the application than it is today. But as you heard the mayor speak, we're going to be seeing David next week, and we're going to bring all this to his attention to see what he can offer.
I know I've seen the, whatever department that is there with the big machine with the snake that goes in and clears the pipe. I know they're trying to keep it clear and flowing as well as they can. But when we get a big storm, we just don't have the capacity to handle it. And many homes, most homes in that development have water in their basement, have a wet basement, most. Because when the sewers stop accepting the water, it goes up on the lawns into the houses. Different problem from what we're here discussing today, but still, anything that this new development adds to it, anything, will exacerbate the problem.
Thank you, Mr. Damiano. Okay, is there anyone else? Come on up.
Karen Mead, 237 Davidson Avenue. I just want to echo my neighbors of what they're mentioning about flooding and the nature concerns. Just to further echo about flooding, when it does flood, my house is not particularly impacted, but we are flooded into the street. There is now multiple feet of water that we are driving through to exit until the flooding is fixed. So again, I just want to reinforce what everyone is sharing, that we are in a very critical state today, and how this is going to be fixed today in order to have any impact for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else?
Madam Mayor, can I add one thing?
Of course.
I would like to mention that I encourage you to go to the planning board meeting, because when you hear the experts lay out and show you pictures of the topography of the land and how they're going to mitigate the water issue, you're going to have a better understanding of, if there's drainage pits or whatever. You're going to, I think, feel more comfortable. These experts go into so much detail, and that's the same thing with traffic, all these things. You're going to learn, what they're addressing, and you can ask them really good questions. It sounds like the flooding you're having now is really something that needs to be addressed, and I think that's going to be taken care of. But I encourage you to listen to these experts, because the planners, they're phenomenal, and you will at least get your questions answered, and you might bring up something that could help them. So.
Right. And once again, there is no application. And when and if one is filed as part of the process under the New Jersey Municipal Land Use Law, they have to give notice to the residents that are within 200 feet. It's by certified mail. And one of the things Mr. Whitaker, who is the attorney for the planning board, he will check with the applicant's lawyer to make sure that all the notice was properly given. If the notice was not properly given, the hearing will not move forward. They will have to do another notice period and get themselves on another agenda. Okay, so, this is just the very first step in something in an extremely long process. Okay, all right, any other questions or comments? Okay, not hearing any. That way, I will close the public comment. Thank you, Mr. Burgess. I appreciate it. Okay. Can we now have a roll call, please, on ordinance 04-2025?
Councilwoman Cusick?
Yes.
Councilman Gutwetter?
Yes.
Councilman Popolo?
Yes.
Councilwoman Poppy?
Yes.
Councilwoman Woods?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, folks. Thanks for attending. Get home safely, and have a happy Easter.
We need a motion to adjourn?
Oh, we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yay.
8:23.
I forgot to do motion to adjourn.
I'm like waiting for it.
I was like,